MCP, 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 MCP.
So thank you, awesome, Sam. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started without further ado. So San Diego, you get the first question. Again, you get 30 seconds to ask, and you get 30 seconds to think about it, and then you'll have 2 minutes to respond.
So what's the best thing you've learned as an MCVP that you will apply towards your MCP term if elected?
I think the best things that I've learned from this MC experience is mainly just like how the MC operates. It's so different than from how the LC operates in terms of the fact that, you know, you're in an office environment now, you're managing 40 hours a week, 12 people, and there are so many things in terms of how you run a planning for like a national organization, how you budget for a national organization. I think there are a lot of things that like I've definitely gained from this MC term that I had no idea before like I was a part of this experience. So I think just, yeah, how to manage an MC team and like all the processes to make that team perform.
Great, thanks. Okay, Sam.
How are you going to ensure a trusting relationship between you, your strategies, and the LCPs?
So I think the best way to ensure a trusting strategy is number one, through constant and like consistent communication, making sure that, you know, it's not just for me to let my strategies be heard, but that I'm also willing to hear from you guys, not just the LCPs, but the national plenary as a whole. So making sure that there are adequate spaces, number one, to get input for MC strategies, and then that those things are being utilized in terms of planning, and then that it's also being effectively communicated through you guys, or to you all.
What is one tangible thing you will do as MCP to ensure quality of exchanges with the increasing communities?
So I think one tangible thing that I would do is I strongly believe that the Entity Control Board, or the ECB's role, needs to be expanded. So I think that our national support bodies can be elevated, and that's one that really, yeah, we can give more responsibility to. So how can we change the ECB from just like doing reactive case management to be more of a proactive role where they're like setting the customer service like standards for the country, so that there may be, I don't know, just getting an opportunity to train LCs. Like, this is actually how you communicate our exchange programs, because I think a lot of the issues that happen, I was a quality control seater actually the first time they launched a program in Brazil, and most of the issues that happen a lot of time are poor expectation setting. Some of them are also definitely like poor quality from AIESEC's end, but by having a body that is completely responsible for customer experience, I think that that's a way that we can make sure that it's implemented to ESCs.
So, and can you guys speak up a little bit, LCPs? They're having trouble hearing you on the live stream.
Okay, so I know in your platform you said that you would focus on 2 programs, but for the current or the EV term, we start in January. If you start your term, you'd be implementing that in SEC. So how would you transfer that?
Thanks. So one thing I think is important to distinguish is just because I want to focus on a couple programs doesn't mean I want to drop other programs. It definitely doesn't mean like, oh, okay, cool, we're not going to run IGIP anymore. Elena, you're fired. Well, it's my team anyway, so I guess you don't work for me. But anyway, it's just a matter of like looking at how we allocate our resources and how we make our strategies. For example, if one of our focus programs is OGCDP, or Outgoing Global Citizen, you know, do we then like invest more money to make sure that we create a summit for like all the VPs? Do we invest more of our time in ensuring that, you know, these touch points are happening because we expect this program to grow like significantly? So I think it's just a matter of looking at it as focusing and not as dropping things off. And for the people that are like still in the terms, I think that I would also encourage you guys as LCs, like, you understand your realities and what programs make sense for you. And I would not want to stop you from running a program that makes sense for your local chapter.
Okay.
What do you plan to do to facilitate a stronger success rate from expanding IGs in order to help them transform to a high functioning LC?
So I think something with expansions that's starting but really hasn't happened is having like very clear steps, like you go through this, you go through this, these resources will be provided to you, and those things are very clearly communicated from the get-go. So that you can actually begin to flourish. I think those things are starting to happen now. It's something that Alex is working on, but we'll have to see how that goes, and then see, okay, what is the state of our expansions? What do they need in order to perform? But I think it's really about just defining these are the clear touch points and constantly evaluating, is this working, and getting feedback and input from our expansions.
How do you propose to change AIESEC US from reactive to proactive?
So I would propose to change AIESEC US to be more proactive by looking at, well, I'll say it this way. So the way we do a lot of our exchanges, I'll use OGX as an example again, because that was what my LC was specialized in, I guess you could say. But basically, we go out, we try to raise these EPs, blah, 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 and then a lot of them drop for financial reasons. I think we need to look at our exchange programs and see why they're not happening, and see maybe can the MCs start creating solutions. So for example, if we know people are dropping for financial restraints, can we make a partnership with a travel company or airline organization where we buy the flight at a lower rate, so we can sell the flight and the exchange together to the EP, so they can maybe save like a few $100s off the flight. I think we need to start thinking about our strategies in terms of how are these solving the problems that we're facing on a daily basis. Because at this point, it's not about doing something crazy new, because we'll still have the same issues we're already facing if we do that. It's about looking at what we're doing and how we can improve it.
Expansions don't always have a strong funding, and in order to get members trained, they do conferences that help them grow more like financial discipline.
So I think with expansions, it definitely is a reality. You guys don't have bank accounts, and also just started, so aren't doing a ton of exchange. So it's, I think, a lot of times maybe unrealistic to expect you to have all this money that you can spend on conferences. Something that I would focus on for expansions is seeing how we can bring the training to you. So instead of focusing on I have to get all of my members to this conference, it's going to cost this much, can I get trainers for our focused programs and support teams that we need, to come to UCLA, for example, and stay there with you guys for an entire day or for a weekend, and really make sure your members are trained, make sure they're practicing, and maybe they can even do some of the tabling and things together so that you guys can learn faster and make sure your entire LC is able to be there.
What will you do to contribute / ensure the health and development of LCs of all realities?
Can you repeat that?
Right. What will you do to contribute / ensure the health and development of LCs of all realities?
Cool. So good question, because I think that's my job as MCP. And in terms of how I lead an MC, the role of the MC is to support the LCs, no matter who they are, no matter what they're doing, to grow. So I think that number one, in terms of the way my team is structured, just making sure that our focuses are all about, how can we get LCs from point A to point B? And making sure we have a clear plan for every LC in terms of what we expect to see from them. Also integrated with what their plans are, what do they want to achieve, and then planning everything in terms of how do we help them get there. I don't think it's a matter of picking and choosing LCs, because at the end of the day, we're one AIESEC United States, and we need to grow together.
What aspect of another candidate's platform do you identify with and respect, unique from your own, and will you implement it should you get that?
So one thing that I do want to say is I actually haven't extensively read other candidates' applications, and the reason for that is because I wanted to be very true to what my ideas were, and I didn't want to see blah 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 and have things cloud what I wanted to talk about and what I stand for after submitting my application. With that being said, one of my first plans if I'm elected is I would definitely go through every single application, take notes, and see okay, what can I glean from this, what is relevant, what is useful to me, and will still grow AIESEC United States. I think everyone that's running is very smart. And so looking at what they want to do is definitely a valid way that I want to start preparing for my MCP role.
In your application, you mentioned aligning the IGC and the OGC programs with current movements. What we'd like to know is how you might bring the same idea into the Global Leader Program. How could you align those with current trends and the SDGs?
Cool, good question. So I think that one thing about our Global Leader Program is we don't really talk about how it's aligned with the SDGs currently. We don't talk about like what is the impact that we really have. Like for example, if you think about gender equality, half the LCPs, actually a little more than half the LCPs in this room, what up, are women in this room, and 3 of the candidates are also women, which even though the past 4 years, they've all been men. I think that, we really need to start actually looking at our membership program and seeing like, what are the great things that AIESEC does that we don't recognize on a daily basis? How diverse we are, how open we are to having these like great conversations. And I think that that's definitely a great thing that I would love to do as MCP is to bring that amount of relevance to our membership program. So that's something that we can sell to people that are applying.
What do you think about the financial model?
In general. So the thing with the financial model, or what I think about the financial model is, first off, it's obviously important for us to find a way that our organization can be sustainable financially. That is the backbone of any business, is just making sure that it can operate. So yeah, I think that, the financial model was changed in order to help assist with that sustainability. Because yeah, right now AIESEC US only is not a financially sustainable organization. That being said, I do see that there are a lot of growing pains in terms of the fact that a lot of LCs, like half of the LCs, are going to be going into debt, or are in debt at this point in time, which is definitely not where we need to go. And I think as MCP, I agree there's room for improvement in the model, and I would be open to doing that. I think a great financial model is something that supports the growth of our LCs, and I'm open to input in terms of how we can find that.
So what makes you the right leader at this time for AIESEC US, especially with 2016 being the first year of implementing?
So I believe I'm the right leader at this time in AIESEC US for a number of reasons, but I'll tell you what they are. So first off, I really feel that I understand this entity. I've actually been in AIESEC US longer than I've been in college, so that's a weird realization I came to this year. But I understand this entity. When I joined AIESEC, my LC did 3 exchanges, and now my LC is doing over 50. It's a number 3, I think, LC in the nation. I don't know. Don't answer that. I'm from AIESEC, that's why I did that. I think I understand what it takes to grow an entity on the local level. And I think that that's what we need now as AIESEC US. There's too much rise and fall every single year. And so we need a leader who can come in, who understands team management, who understands how LCs work, and can coach you guys on how you can develop your LCs. And I think that if I want to be remembered for anything as an MCP candidate, it's for building LCs on the local level. And that's what I think I definitely want to do for 2016.
What is your weakness as an MCP?
So I think one of my personal weaknesses is that I'm not detail oriented. I can be pretty scatterbrained at times. And I think that that could somehow, or that could impact the way my team operates in terms of okay, do we have these great ideas that we're going for, and then certain things fall through the crack. And the way that I would balance that out is, number one, by picking balancing, I guess, that weakness within my team. So making sure that we do have people that are detail oriented on the team, that we do have people that have strengths that I don't have, and that I have strengths that they don't have. Okay, well, that have strengths that I don't have. I think it's just really important to find that balance, because no one's going to be perfect at everything. So yeah.
What is your proposed ideal sustainable financial model, since we got to talking about the financial model?
So First off, I don't have a background in economics at all, so I can't make extreme financial advice. But for me, what a financial model that is sustainable would look like is one where we cover our costs, because that's important. One where our LCs can plan from the first day of their terms in terms of knowing what they need to do in order to make their payments or in order to, I guess, just be financially sustainable for the year. And one that also supports LCs to grow. I think another thing that we miss a lot of time is just financial management understanding at the local level. That's a reason, I think that's part of the reason why this implementation has been rocky, is because we've never had to know our finances before. We've never had to keep budgets. And I think a good financial model will force us to keep budgets, because that's a way that we can develop as an AIESEC LC as members, by understanding the finances of a local business.
So I kind of wanted to do in a quick short statement, if possible, from you. What is your stand?
I think that as MCP, 16 as a candidate, I don't know, I'm standing for bringing growth to AIESEC US, but starting from the local chapters. That's the one thing that I think means the most to me. So it means that we're giving support on a local level for our LCs to know, okay, it's not a mystery. I know how to manage my team. I know how to manage my members. I know how to, how these exchange programs work. I'm not just coming in on the first day and I didn't have a transition, but also there's no support system for me. I think that that's the main thing. I mentioned it before, that's what I want to be known for, is by building LCs and encouraging LCs to build themselves, because that's the best possible future I see for AIESEC US, is when every single LC is doing 50, 70, 100 exchanges. So yeah.
So what do you think are the key strategies to help increase retention rate of each LC?
So I think a key strategy for me to increase those retention rates are to ensure that we're offering the best AIESEC experiences to everyone. I've had an amazing AIESEC experience. It's one where I didn't always know what I was supposed to be doing or have a job or really understand why I had to get this specific number of things. But if we really take Global Leader and make it as defined of a program as our outgoing or incoming exchange programs are, where we know our members are getting all the elements of the leadership development model, where they're being challenged, where they're growing every day and they're recognizing that they're growing every day, I think that's the best thing that you can do in order to improve retention, because then your members have a reason to be an AIESEC.
What current strategies that Dom has put into place are you going to keep or add on to?
So a couple of things I definitely want, or that I think stick out from our MP term that I want to keep are, number one, having a tiered MC structure. It makes things so, in terms of how we work internally, it makes things so much faster. It makes us able to do a lot more than just if Dom was managing 12 people full-time, or I guess 11, but all these people full-time for every single aspect of their job. It allows us to have those great synergy points and innovate a lot faster than I think any other team has been able to do, at least in my time in AIESEC. And then I think one thing that stemmed from that is just the Emoji X kind of thing. Yeah. Just having that amount of synergy between two functions that have to work well together, because you can't have one without the other, really, So I think that those are two things I really want to carry forward in my term.
What strategies are you thinking about to continue powerful product innovation during your term? And adding on to that, what ideas do you have to further refine good products that already exist? Great.
So in terms of developing new products, okay, I'll start this way. So we have a product development summit that's in the works. And I think that those touch points are really important, because that for us as an MC to have with the local level, because you guys are the ones that are selling the program every day. So I think that you guys can understand, these are the objectives that we're always facing. Can we evolve our product so that this isn't an objective anymore? Can we, people are saying, they don't need this, they don't see the value in it. Is there a way that we can actually change our product to have value? And that's something I would be really open to. And I think that it's something we haven't really done since I've been in AIESEC US, but I think it's time for that. Strategies, I don't necessarily have particular ones, but what I would say is I would want it to be something that's co-created from the LC level. So where I, bring some people apply to come to like either another product development somewhere. We're using the output and having like a steering team or like different NSTs that are testing these products out, and we can really keep the ball moving on it. Because product development isn't something that just happens one day overnight. It's a process. And I think it's a process that has to be collaborated on.
Well, let's say it's the first day of your term. Can you walk us through in general what you would hope to accomplish from dawn to dusk that day? What you would do?
Cool, so July 1st, next year. I think that something that's really key on the first day is to make sure that my teammates, my team members know exactly what they have to do. It's something you think like, oh, like the MC just goes through the transition and automatically they know what to do every day for a year, and it's just not true. So I make sure that we, would take what we did in our planning and implemented that on our first day, saying, okay, how can we get the ball rolling on this, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. That's all I had. Awesome. What you guys? Awesome. All right, check it out. This is gonna be another 20 minutes.
Yes.
Just get an idea of like how much of it is like say you're gonna add on just like that this is 30 days. So like kind of like challenge like okay, what did you not like coordinate?
Because I got a question that said
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. Like, we found that they ended up with two of them, and they were like, really talk about it, but it's something you really need to like push back. It's a big deal. See what they have to say about it instead of saying like,
Okay, guys, get ready. They're coming back. Wait, we can stand up so we're like, yeah. All right, let's stand up, stretch right before they get here.
Sold out. Sold out. It is my ET. Sold out here. Exactly.
Diego, you can go ahead with the first question.
So using the experience you already have as an MCVP, what's number one thing that you've learned that you would implement towards your MCVP?
I think I could give you like a million different answers. The first one that comes to mind about when you asked about my MCP experience, I think something that would have empowered me to be who I wanted to be faster in my term, and then therefore more able to be effective, would have been really working on my personal development before my term even started. It seems like it's maybe a small thing, and it's kind of a fun thing that I think I've thought of and I really want to bring to the team. But that is from the day that the MC is selected, that they are working on identifying their personal strengths and weaknesses, so they can, work on their strengths over their weaknesses. And Brene Brown, that's who I recommend you guys all look up, is who I've been working with her books a lot, and she offers online courses about dealing with fear and with failure and getting up from failure. Because I think that there's a big emotional learning curve starting an MC term. And I think that I've become the best version of myself more and more every day. And I think had I been working on that from March onwards, I think I would have been able to be a lot more effective sooner. And so when I think of my MC experience, I wish I would have done stuff like that. Because from March when I was selected until July 1st when my term started, I had no idea what I was in for. You don't really know until you're there, but I could have been working on it a little bit earlier. So I would want to equip my team with those experiences and push them emotionally before they arrived in New York, so they could be on their way to being the best version for themselves from day one. Thank you for the question.
What is the ideal team that you would
So when I think of my ideal team, I think the first quality I think of that's universal, because I know everyone's different and I want different profiles on my team, is its respect. I think for me the word respect, or maybe even caring, as I said before, is one of my values, solves a lot of fundamental issues. And I think that people understand respect, but I want people on my team that live and breathe respect and feel uncomfortable in environments in which respect is not present. People that understand that respect means treating customers with respect. Respect means never delivering a session that is not fully prepared. And respect means never coming to a team meeting without a good attitude or a willingness to excuse yourself for a bad attitude. And respect means working with people and respecting people for where they are in their journey, and respecting yourself enough to know your boundaries and to say you have boundaries. I think it just solves a lot of issues that a team can encounter. So me, it'd be pushing people to show me and explain to me and prove to me that that was something that they held as a core value. And then beyond that, I want every type of personality. I need someone on my team that's action-oriented and willing to jump into anything without even having to look first, because I need that to balance me, who wants to ask a million questions. And I want someone on my team that's international, from an incredibly high-performing entity, to show me what I've never even imagined and dreamed of. And I want someone on my team that has been through the trenches, someone that has failed so many times and can show me that they know how to get back up. And it doesn't have to be nice, it can be in some other part of their life. So I want everything on my team. And I want people that balance me, and I want people that complement each other, as long as they're people that I know I can count on to respect me and to respect each other. Without that, I think everything falls apart. I think that your differences become too big. Your purpose has to be bigger than your differences. And I think without respect, the differences become too big and they kill the team. Thank you for the question.
What makes you the right leader for AIESEC United States as of this time, as we are approaching 2016, which is the first year?
So I think I'm the right person to lead AIESEC US in the next year, because of the intersection of who I am and my experience. And so I think I've shared with you guys who I believe I am and where I come from and my values. And how that intersects with my experience is that I think that I've done a little bit of everything in AIESEC. That I've facilitated different kinds of tracks. I've worked in outgoing exchange and incoming exchange. I've been in LCP, and I've been all over. And I think I have a sense of what's going on in a lot of different places. And therefore I can appreciate the problems in different functions, and I can also appreciate what's going really well. And I can put the right people on my team. I mean, 2020 is, to me, the most beautiful thing that we'll talk about at this conference. I love 2020, and I'm so glad we've had a session to help you guys connect with that. Because to me, 2020 is the end of the chapter. Like, if every midterm ambition is a chapter, then it's the last chapter of that book, or that part of the book. So if we know the end, then all we have to figure out is what the first chapter has to be to get to that last chapter. It's like you already know the ending, so what if you work backwards from that, what has to happen in the first year to get there? And so for me, 2016 is setting all those 2016 is setting all the foundation for 2020. And I think because I have a really firm grasp of what 2020 is, I think I'm the best version of myself at this moment in time. And I think that I've had all the experiences to be able to immerse myself in any part of the organization with any expansion to a full member with anybody. I think that means that I understand and I have a better idea of how to bring the right people on board to figure out what the first chapter has to be to get to the last chapter that we already know about. Thank you for the question.
So how will you use the LCPs to translate your platform to the results made by the LC?
It's a great question because absolutely the MCP is kind of the team leader of the LCP class. And that's the kind of a primary responsibility of the role. And so, and I mean, the LCPs plus the MCP make up what we define as the national plenary and the compendium. And that's the people that are trying to bring the organization forward. And so for me, that being the people I most enjoy working with on a day-to-day basis because I'm supposed to be engaging with them so my team can engage with their VPs, and we can all engage with the general members of the organization. And so for me, it takes a lot of trust in each other. Is that if I trust the LCP class and they trust me, then what it takes is me being able to say, me and my team have this new idea, and we believe in it, and we can show you where we're coming from with it, and we need you to try it. And we'll never know if something new works unless we're with an LCP class that believes in us and trusts in us enough to try it. And to say that we're okay if we fail because we wanted to try in the first place, that we're not risk averse. And in the same way, I'm an LCP class that knows if they come to me and say, this is not working, we did try, don't question that we tried, we need something different, that they would trust enough to know that I would say, I believe you, let's find a different solution. So for me, trust would be how the relationship would work, and it would come from a place of willingness to try things together, and being okay and not resentful if it didn't work out, because we trusted each other to find the solution after that. Thank you for the question.
In detail, what do you plan to do to facilitate a stronger success rate from expanding IGs in order to help them transform into high-functioning LCs?
Wonderful question. Something that I'm incredibly passionate about because it's most of what I do in a given week is working with expansions. And I would agree that there's a lot more we have to figure out. Is that there's absolutely not a perfect recipe for an expansion. And maybe there's not supposed to be, but I think there's a lot more that we can learn to get in the right direction. And so for me, it's about piloting some new things. That's why we have people in the room that we're calling pilot expansions. And that's kind of a word I came up with about let's take 5 or let's take 6 new entities and let's try something very particular and new with them and learn as much as we can from that. So we have 5 LCs that were started at the same time, and in the same focus program, they're going to be the same training and the same focus on simple is beautiful, focus on exchange. The idea that we're going to bring a focus on exchange as the tool that has the ability to transform you the fastest. And if we focus on that, I believe in my goal and who I am right now as an MCVP, not as an MCP candidate, is that by the end of my term, we will have so much more insight into how this works. Is that because we're trying something new, and all the other expansions that we have in the organization besides those 6 to 10 other ones, they're all trying different things and giving feedback in super valuable ways. That every single time something works, we need to figure out if that can apply to somebody else. And every time something's not working, you have to try to figure out what variable it was. It's sometimes a million different things. But for me, it's about working in clusters, or working in a geographic region or with a timeline in terms of how long you've been open, and doing something together with each particular group. And then I love trying to distill data or like some inference from something and saying, okay, if we did the same thing with these 5 and it only worked out in 1, what variable was different then? Why did that work out? I'm trying to draw some conclusions from it. Thank you for the question.
So in one statement, and as few words as possible, and no explanation, what is your stand?
So my stand would be an AIESEC United States that has a culture of achievement and that is digitally remarkable and exists within a network of alliances by the end of the year term 2016-2017. Thank you for the question.
So you mentioned you want to try new things on the expansions, but what if there are risks, like impossible outcomes you don't want? And do you have like possible potential solutions towards that?
Yeah, I think there's risks involved with trying anything new. And I think especially with trying something new with an expansion, someone that's just starting in the organization, the biggest risk for me would be that it doesn't grow to the extent that you want it to. That maybe it worked a little bit or it didn't work massively. I don't anticipate that the things that we're doing with expansions can cause a risk that would cause us harm. It would just not cause the impact that we want it to have. And so for me, the way that I see expansions moving in terms of someone needs to be responsible for them, as I am now, and also that the way the compendium is worded and will be worded in the future is it gives a lot of power to the MC and those that are hosting expansions to say they need a little bit more time. I think you leave some room for common sense when you work with expansions because you're figuring things out. And so when you say, it's been 6 months and we see that you tried some things that didn't work, but we see that you tried and it's going in the right direction, now let's do 6 more months and let's do 6 more months. And it's about like having that room for that common sense approach and that understanding for what effort looks like and being able to see the effort and see how far the effort got you and then to try something a little bit different. But we can't be afraid of risk working with expansions because it's like the most uncertain and confusing place in the organization. And anyone that's working with an expansion is one of the bravest people in the organization. And so those are the people that are just faced with risks all day, every day, and you have to somehow find some comfort in that if you can. Thank you for the question.
How's your experience working with expansions and universities going to contribute to you becoming MCP?
I feel incredibly privileged. I think it's been one of the best parts of my AIESEC experience so far that I get to work with expansions. When Don proposed university relations, there was a little bit of back and forth about that I wanted to be the expansions responsible, and that was going to be part of that job because my LC was disbanded in my LCP term, and so I've been an expansions LCP and a full member LCP. And so I've been there, and I was leading a restarted LC, and that was still one of the hardest and most confusing things I've ever done in my life. And my LC wasn't even a fully fresh expansion. And so I think I have a lot of empathy for that experience. And I think for me, if you can't start at the bottom of the organization with something fresh and new and explain the organization, its beauty, its magic, and also its impact to someone that's never heard of it before, then you can't explain the organization. And so for me, it's a very humbling experience to work with someone that falls in love with something that they only kind of understand and they want to learn more and they realize that there's something magical they want to know more about and that they're willing to figure it out. And what that gives me as a candidate is a lot of humility, a lot of patience, and also a lot of orientation to details because working with a university requires having your ducks in a row and knowing what's going on and not making mistakes because universities aren't as forgiving and they have a longer memory than we do as an organization. And so I think what that brings is all those different perspectives. And I think it's a unique perspective because I think we have a lot of expansions in AIESEC US, but many people don't engage with them or interact with them or understand where they're coming from. And so I feel really, really privileged to have that experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in this year. And I think it's part of what's made me the best version of myself is the work I've had to do with bringing AIESEC to where it wasn't before. And figuring out what that takes and then the insights that gives you to bring it to somewhere where it already exists and to grow it even bigger. Thank you for the question.
In previous years, multiple MCPs have pushed for a culture of achievement and have pushed for having LCs do more exchange, but yet we remain in the same ballpark from year to year. What will you do differently to create a culture of achievement and get the disruptive growth that you present in your platform?
Yeah. I agree with you absolutely that it's not a unique thing to say that I want to bring achievement to the organization. It's not even a new thing to talk about. It's not even a new phrase. And I think, so for me, what makes the difference to bring something like that to the organization is focus. To me, it's focusing on the Global Leader Program first and foremost. And I think never saying again that it's not a program, it's the Global Leader Program and treating it as such with deliverables and trackable data and numbers and things and that kind of stuff. But it also, to me, it's a big shift in culture, and culture can be created and culture can be decided upon. And so it takes a decision for the culture to be the way we want it to be. And it takes a lot of really hard decisions. It takes a lot of fearlessness to say, you will not be in the organization if you're not on board with this. And it is not acceptable that you did not achieve your goals. And that's not a value judgment on who you are as a person to say that it is not acceptable that you did not achieve your goals. It's saying, now that you are face down in the arena and you have fallen, let's get back up together. And acknowledging that you don't get to stay there. You don't get to say that it was good enough, that you have to be okay with working through the hardest thing in your life, which is overcoming failure. And so for me, it's just a conscious decision to be the people that can get up from that kind of stuff. I think it comes from culture. I think over the last 5 years, we created a global culture of underachievement because we didn't achieve AIESEC 2015, but we achieved AIESEC 2010. This organization knows how to achieve. And so it takes the next midterm ambition being when we decide that it will not be AIESEC 2015 again, where we don't achieve our numeric goals. But if we don't make the decision, it's not going to happen. If it's just me standing up here saying that that's what I've decided to do, it's absolutely not going to happen. It's gonna take people in the organization saying that I know fear is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and failure and all of that stuff, and I'm ready for it. And I'm ready to fail, and I'm ready to fall flat on my face. And then I'm ready to ask the people around me who I love and respect and trust to help me get back up for it. But it's gonna take everyone deciding that. Thank you for the question.
All right, let's say that it's fall 2016 and we've just recruited a class of global leaders. What would you tell them is their relationship with your MC and with AIESEC 2020?
So first about 2020, that's a great one because I didn't know what AIESEC 2015 was until like 2014 or 2013. And when I went abroad and experienced other AIESEC agencies, I realized that they were talking about being Gen 2015 and they had it on t-shirts and it was like an identity that they had. And so that the first thing I would do is part of their identity through induction is Gen 2020. That's what other entities are doing, that's how they're talking. That we're not the generation of the year 2016 or the year 2017, they were the generation that's part of a five years. And so we're not talking about things in terms of a year, talking about in terms of that 5 year. That what you're doing in this year is part of the 5 year. And so that's a cultural and an induction thing, and a thing that if you bring it into our daily conversations, it gets adopted in the organization. We have to talk about 2020. I didn't know what 2015 was until I went to the Netherlands, to Rotterdam to work with AI, and I was like, and there was booklets about it, and I read these things, and I was like texting my ED, like, what is this? I didn't know. If we'd known from 2010 in AIESEC US, then we would have been able to onboard a lot faster to that. And so it's wonderful that we're talking about it now. And so I think that that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure we're on the right track with bringing 2020 into AIESEC US. Then in terms of onboarding new members to the organization with my MC, that to me is building a team, and this even comes back to your question about what I want my team to look like, is building a team that has an emphasis on relationship building. And in that, and in respect, relationship building means that when we come to a conference, our sessions are so prepared that we can spend every free moment working with the general members. Or it means that when we go on coaching visits, that we're not coaching the VPs, we're working with every single member to help them understand what's going on with the team. I mean, there's a lot of uniqueness that the MC can do and where the MC can be working with the general members. And there's also a lot we can be doing to empower VPs and empower LCPs to help connect their members to what the MC is, and really define that relationship. Thank you for the question.
So the last question. What would you like to see change about the global leader program?
I wouldn't say there's a lot of things, but I'd say there's definitely several. And a lot of them have to do with the way that we talk about the program. And that's why I've been saying, and I'll keep saying it's a global leader program, that we have to treat it like it's a program. And to me, that means that people understand that they're inducted to something that has requirements, and it has a bar that has to be reached, and it has development, it has milestones, and that they understand they're part of this thing that has a plan. It's not just like a pot you get thrown into and kind of figure and swim your way around, but it's got a process in it. And then I think some of the way directions we're moving in that are really great that I would like to continue to work on and make bigger is the sharedness, that might not be the right word, but the sharedness of the Global Leader Program in terms of we tried to invite the whole plenary into transition. We had the transition webinars, and anyone in AIESEC US could apply to host one. And we're trying to bring like this collective knowledge and this collective wisdom to the Global Leader Program so we can move everybody together forward. And then also I think it would be an even better program if we engaged more alumni with it. I think that I've met alumni before that tell me, like, I'm 50 and I have 3 kids, and I come to the AIESEC Life, which is our alumni association retreat, every single year, no matter where in the US it is. And if you can see me and I invest this much of my time and money back into AIESEC, can you imagine what it did to me in my younger years that I would still do this? And that's really powerful. People that are CEOs of companies, people that are just wonderful people doing great things in their life, and that they saw the value in that, you've got to bring that back. Why can't you have an alumni that's done really great things in your Global Leader recruitment info sessions, showing people that this is what the organization can offer? So I think we have to make the Global Leader program serious, purposeful, and also really real by bringing in people that have gone through it. And I think that'll be the best thing that we can do and to bring to the organization. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Alice.
I think so 3 more.
Two more to go.
No, we're doing it.
Don't smile.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. No, it's okay. It's like, really close. No, just there.
I went upstairs and I didn't get a lot of get out. You share.
Well, this is like
It's like I see it. Okay, so go ahead and sit with the LC. We're going over elections right now, okay? Cool. Oh, sorry. Hey guys. They can see your face. It's amazing. In comparison to mine.
You guys want to do an energizer?
Yes.
Okay, everybody stand up. All right, now I want you to turn to your right. Turn to your right and then massage the person in front of you with shoulders. This is my favorite energizer ever.
Yeah. I guess you don't have to massage it.
All right, still stay standing because they're about to come in, but now turn to the front. We'll do the other side after this. I promise. I love you people that were on this, and you're my favorite. Like, it's me all the time.
Great. Thank you guys.
Let's get started. Sandy, you have the first question?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, so I'm really confident in the key parts of my platform that directly relate to my skills. The training aspect, that's who I am. The self-awareness aspect, the organizational self-awareness, the structures, the legacy of implementing the LDM in actual strategy. But the thing that I would say I think is most dubious and might not work, and maybe I might need to pull out of, is the idea of bringing sales skills into OGX training. I do believe that sales is a philosophy, and sales can be applied to any aspect of life. Sales is part of the reason I'm a good LCP, and it's part of the reason I'll be a good MCP. What I've been noticing resistance when I talk about the concept of introducing some sales skills into training for OGX. Simple things, not corporate scary things, but how to relate to a student, how to do a needs analysis, make sure that they are the right customer, making sure how to manage objections and all that. So the implementation of that is something I'm concerned about. I do sense that I will have to generate more buy-in if that's going to be a viable strategy. And for me, no strategy on my MC is complete without a successful buy-in and implementation. And you can have the best strategies in the world, but if the MCs, if the LCs and the planner are not carrying it out, then what is it, right? So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that, and I will work at having a conversation, a two-sided conversation about whether this is something we need, testing it out with a focus group. And if it proves to be not implementable or not even the right strategy, well then I need the self-awareness to realize that, okay, fair enough, granted. Thank you.
Also, can you speak up a little bit louder when you're talking? We want to be able to like realize you do something, right?
What is one thing you would change about the current financial model?
Let me preface, thank you for your question. I will preface this by saying I don't pretend to have all the answers regarding finance, and I don't pretend to be the expert on this. I do say that I will be the chief executive who prioritizes this, listens to the right people, asks the right questions, brings the right people together, and pulls the trigger on the right decision. I think that the biggest problem with the current financial model is how it punishes success. And when you look at that symptom, and you look at the underlying cause, it's because the affiliation fee that LCs contribute to the MC is based on 1 year exchange contribution. So if my LC suddenly doubles exchange, we're really rolling in the money this year because we have all this money, but we're paying you the affiliation fee of half the exchange the previous year. But the following year, our contribution spikes. And maybe we didn't project that well enough and we don't have the money. Or maybe it's an unfair contribution depending on how the rest of the planner is shaping out. So I think a simple solution is to expand that time range in which you do things to have less wild shifts. Maybe make it 3 years. Maybe make it 2 years, maybe make 3, maybe you can play with it. But so that if you have a jump in exchange, your contribution only rises proportionate to the 3-year average. That's one possible, and I know this has been talked about, and I think it's a great idea. But yeah, that's a conversation that needs to continue. And I will make that a priority, listening closely to the LCPs, to their VP finances, with my MCVP, and making sure that the financial model works for everyone as much as possible. It may not ever become perfect, but that has to be a priority. And it will be a priority under my term. Thank you.
So why are you now applying for MCP after being uninvolved with your LCP class in the national level?
I think that I'm really good at playing roles. I think I talked about this with your group. I would think that I'd be a great bartender because I do that as a role, and you can do these things, and you lend that ear and mix the drinks and all that. But when I define a role, I can play that role. I can fill in the role without reservation. And when I defined the LCP role, it was in the context of seeing my LC suffering because of a lack of laser-like focus on what was happening on the ground level. And so the context there, what I defined my role to be as LCP was my responsibility is the success of my LC above everything else. And I had a laser-like focus on my LC, making sure that our exchange grew, our members were developed, we had incredible recruitment, and as an organization, as a club, as an entity, we grew into a family and we excelled. Now, looking back, yeah, that's a learning point. I now see that I could have defined the role to include more of helping the national planner, because I did notice whenever I raised my voice, whenever we're having these conversations, there was a vacuum. There was a vacuum of leadership discussion. I would get on calls about how we're going to organize our ideas to approach the MC and what's going on. And then I step in and I start facilitating the conversation and things start happening. And I do regret not filling that vacuum because I know I could have. But when I define this MCP role, I know the role, I know the rules, I know how it should be defined, and if you don't agree with me, well then you can talk to me or you can vote accordingly. But when I define the role, the rules of the role of MCP the way I have, as I've outlined in my platform, I know, and I think you can know that I will fill those requirements. It's a matter of how I define the role, and yeah, it's a good learning point. Thank you for your question.
So I see that a lot of, so for 2020 coming up, and this is the first year of this fifth-year generation. And I see that a lot of your strategies are on a local level, like you said. And how are you going to shape what we do to this national 2020?
I'm sorry to ask this, but can you repeat the question?
You have 10 seconds.
Okay, so how are you going to shape your strategies to align with the 2020?
Thank you for your question. I'll try to remember some of the other parts previous before you could repeat it. We're in an interesting position now because we're all obligated to AIESEC 2020, but by that time, pretty much everyone here will be alumni. So it's hard to have the immediacy of that and project into that. But I do believe that the fundamental success principles that I've installed in my LC can be extrapolated to the national level, and that they're timeless principles. They can be adapted to different local realities, and that I bring what we need at this point in time. Maybe I wouldn't be the MCP we need in 2018 or 2019, but I do believe I'm the MCP we need now, considering that 2020 landmark. And that by the time we get to 2020, we need to have established the success principles as an institution, as strategy, as a legacy moving forward, so that when we do get there, they are thanking us. They are thanking us for supercharging our talent capacity. They're thanking us for leaving a legacy of solving the staggered one-year terms that has plagued us ever since the revolution. And solving the financial issues and making sure that as an organization, we're achieving with excellence and giving them the liberty, the freedom of expanding their MC when right now we're having to think about contracting it. The liberty of thinking about top-level innovation because all of their LCs are performing, and we're, as an entity, we're moving forward in that regard. So Jim Rohn said that success is just doing a handful of things well every day. And that failure is making a small series of misjudgments every single day. If we want success in 2020, we need to start hammering those success principles now, every day, and making sure that this lasts into the next MC and the one after that, going forward.
What do you plan to do to facilitate a stronger success rate from expanding IGs to functioning LCs, like in the future?
Because structure follows strategy, and because there's a recognition that strategy needs to be making sure that we take our current expansions and convert them into high-performing sustainable LCs, and we resist the excitement of new shiny expansions when we have ones on the table that we could lose or could blossom. When we have that strategy, placing the MCVP expansions on the MC, that follows the strategy. And so I view that as key. If I want to get the right person, put them in that role, and work closely, and take my strategies, my principles, and adapting them to the expansion, because those do also apply. Because the expansions, interestingly, are at a microcosm, kind of small level of what AIESEC United States is at right now. They need to have incredible recruitments. They need to find a couple key people who can revolutionize the organization, push it forward, because that's all it takes. As an expansion, you have, what, 8 members around, give or take. Some have even 2, I've noticed. It takes that 1 or 2 great people. It takes excellent support from the VP expansions, excellent training, excellent support, and an initiative to make sure that every expansion gets a customized training visit from whoever is the most relevant trainer. And when those have converted into functioning LCs, so self-sustaining LCs, that is part of the bottom-heavy, principled strategy approach that will drive success through 2020. Thank you.
So Nick, from what you've talked about and everything, you've been very about like bottom up, and you even spoke about that multiple times now. But I can see through your platform that can be easily top down and heavily micromanaged from you or from the MC. So how can you explain this difference between kind of what your platform can evolve into versus how you want to execute it?
That question deserves a sip of water. It's kind of ironic that some strategies that are aiming for a bottom-heavy organization require a top-down approach. The training one is an excellent example. How can we expect training to become a bottom-heavy thing if at the top it's not being done excellently? So the training revolution I want to bring has to start at the top, even though it's intended to have an effect at the bottom. The MC needs to become masterclass trainers as they're starting their term, biting the bullet, suffering through that training, not suffering, it's gonna be fun, but having that training and getting it done so that when we roll out, you can see that we're leading by example, that this is how you train, and this is how we do things. Making the executive decision to engineer the national trainers team to be more like a steering team, inviting that steering team to New York City, designing a training culture, shifting our TTT curriculum and its method of delivery in a meta way to reflect what I want to do. Some of these decisions need to be top down. And the aim is for the rocks fassies, the coaching visits, those to be empowered, those to be powerful pipeline, because frankly, you can't separate pipeline from trainers in this organization. Most pipeline are fassies. That's the way it needs to be in an ethereal organization like this where people are coming and going. So that what I say, it just needs to be that way. Let's see, are there anything else I could be referring to? Yeah, follow up with me if I didn't satisfy your question on that, but I do think training is the biggest example of taking a top-heavy, top executive approach to ultimately creating a bottom-heavy organization. That's just the way it needs to be, strategically speaking, if you're thinking about actual implementation, actual execution, in my opinion. Thank you.
So you mentioned to provide like trainers visit to expansions and at like Spring Audit Summit. So do you think it is financially affordable for general members, especially expansions, to go to those conferences? And how can MC help in like expansions to grow more financially support?
So luckily, a lot of my strategies rely on the existing infrastructure. The MC bootcamp, the LC bootcamp was happening during existing infrastructure, transition, and WMC. When it comes to these other things, there are existing funds that aren't being utilized. So the currently the trainer travel budget that we use to assign coaching visits is half utilized. 50% of it is used. The rest just gets recycled. Currently, the National Support Fund is woefully underutilized. Now, when I innovated with Manifest, when I created Manifest, which by the way made a profit 2 times, we did get support from the National Support Fund. We requested it. So I do think there are ways to do these summits. By the way, the MC does already do summits. We have BD summits, we have steering teams come, we have multiple steering teams every year. It might be a matter of just shifting that to here and having a net effective zero on the finances. There are other approaches to take though, and these can be played with. We can have a bidding system. We can say, which LC wants to take the charge on the logistics of this conference. You can request national support from the fund, make this a profitable conference, and then we will have a hand in the content. There are a lot of ways to go about this. I think the existing underutilized funds that are for innovation like this, that are for these new projects, could be used. I think the National Sport Fund could become more aggressive and take the initiative on things, approaching LCs to say, hey, there are a list of projects that could happen. Is your LC willing to do this? You would get this much money to do it. But I do think that with the expanding BD revenues that I plan to do, with the expansion of these strategies, adding a BD manager, which should pay for itself with minimal results, that these strategies can be adapted to these new initiatives. And that why shouldn't the OGX Summit be supported by the revenue we're generating from any of these other initiatives? Why can't we get sponsorships or outside support for making sure that an event centered on excellence and execution of sending people abroad isn't somehow aligned with some organization with similar values? It can be done. I intend to let it be done. If possible, in a bottom-heavy way that supports financial sustainability and local success. Thank you.
What will you do to contribute / ensure the health and development of LCs of all realities?
Thank you. I'm trying to think of a question that doesn't fall back on the core of my platform, but I don't think that's an answer that doesn't fall back on the core of my platform, but I don't think that's necessary because the core of my platform does address this, in that taking the most vulnerable, highest potential entities and placing them under responsibility of a dedicated MCPP member, the expansions and IGs. Emphasizing local powerful training, emphasizing strong recruitments for every LC across every function as a national initiative, ensuring that the financial model is applicable to every single level of success in every single LC. To me, these are the basic requirements for success in any LC. And that, yeah, sometimes you want to give a creative, flashy answer, but success and excellence isn't always so. It's often a lot more simpler. And yeah, that's what I have for you. Thank you.
Let's do the last question.
Coming from the LC level, you haven't had experience on an MC. What disadvantages will this bring to you, and how will you work towards fighting those disadvantages and overcoming them?
Do I have a full 2 minutes on this question? So this is something that honestly haunted me as I was considering doing this. It's something that was like an abyss I was staring into. It's like, oh, can I be MCP? Should I be MCP? Is this responsible? And that's the #1 objection you get when you hear about people talking about me to maybe current MC members or whatever. And it's #1 objection I give myself. But because of this, I've thought about this a lot. And I do think that I've converted this into a strength in that, sure, there are some information gaps that I have. I can use that perspective and that prioritization to ensure that, well, this information gap actually applies to the whole MC, not just me. Every MC member will be coming in fresh with no experience being at the national level and making it a team culture that we bridge that gap as soon as possible. Enforcing an MC boot camp, designing our lifestyles in terms of when we get up, what we eat, how we exercise, have accountability to a team so that we are functioning as human beings first, as MC people second. I strongly believe that the vast majority of my lack as a candidate is informational and can be learned during transition. I strongly believe that. Whether that is international aspects, Dom is really good at that and we're a good match on that. He can teach me these things and I can teach him a couple things. Whether it's being on the MC, these all are informational. I truly believe that what I bring to the table cannot be learned during transition. That it is core to my candidacy as a powerful chief executive with the perspective, with the backbone, with the ability to galvanize, inspire, and bring people together and execute. Those things can't be learned during transition. And I'm a graduate without a job yet, and I plan on moving to New York City as fast as possible, as soon as they'll have me, and starting that intimate transition. And I think it'll work out. I think it'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. the massage. Didn't get to that last night.
Do you want me to sit? Do you want me to sit? I'm very stiff right now. Lydia.
All right, come back to the front. Okay, last candidate, so stand up and get ready.
MCP! 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 MCP!
So we'll go ahead and start with the first question. San Diego.
All the time you've been on MC, from your career, what's the number one thing you've learned that you implement towards your husband?
Okay, cool. So there are three things that come to my mind. The first one is communication is crucial. Absolute communication. I think that something that I've learned is like do not hide anything, never ever. If something is going wrong, it's a partnership. If a partnership is going wrong, if a strategy is not going well, communicate to the LCPs and communicate with your VPs. What's happening, and then let's figure that out together. Because I've learned that like the more you hide, the more risk you have that the LCs will not succeed. So I think that's something that I will implement, and that involves like what is communicated, when is communicated, who is communicating this strategy, and how it's happening. The second thing is about the NSB as a powerful tool, a powerful like resource and capacity and like an ally for the MC. We have 40 entities in this country like now, plus the new pilot entities. There is no way that I, as an MCVP, functionally speaking, can handle like the entire network. What I'm talking about. So when I think about MCP, I would have an army of NSB, or encourage my team to have an army of NSB that are very, very empowered and are high qualified to deliver as well as like the same content that an MCVP can deliver. So these NSB should be able to go to a conference and do a coaching visit as high quality as an MC member can do. Or this, for example, the LCD that we have currently, this LCD should be as qualified as the MCP to talk to the LCPs about how to develop their LCs. The final thing is about customizing strategies, because I think that usually something that we do in AIESEC is like we take a look at, okay, what Colombia is doing, let's bring it here. What India is doing, what Brazil is doing, let's bring it all. And if something that I've learned in my term currently now, there are some things that definitely are not applicable to our reality. So it's like how we take this strategy, understand how it worked, what happened, what were the changes, or what was the critical point that made this country grow, and how we bring this strategy and apply it to the US, and how we can just like change it or adapt it, or maybe it can work. So those are the things.
What is one thing you would change about our current financial model?
Okay, so one thing for me, the financial model should be based on exchange. Like, I know that we are going to implement a new model that have like different components, and I want of exchange is one of those. But I think like the more we connect all the other functions like finance and marketing to the directly in part of the exchange, that will encourage LCs to be better. Because the more exchange I do, the more revenue I will have, the more sustainable I will be to handle my operations. But if that doesn't happen, then what happened, and that happened in the past, is that LCs get comfortable because maybe like that's not my priority and the moment, and maybe that's not something that's going to leverage my results. So maybe that will be like that will like create like this sense of urgency in the LCs to deliver like more.
How do you think not having a local level AIESEC United States experience will affect you as an MC?
So I do believe that there is no one more expert in what AIESEC US need than you. Like, I think that you, or if you ask me, okay, so I'm from Texas. So Ari, what should be the focus of Texas next year? I cannot tell you that answer. I can facilitate the process for you to get to that answer, and I can like help you to give you the tools that you need to get to that answer. And that's my role as MCP. So I will say that the fact that you are the expert in that process, and especially the LCPs, which are the one at the highest level of leadership and experience that we have currently in the organization, or like in this conference, for example, that forced me to create more spaces and to communicate more with the LCPs and include them in my process, in my decision-making process, or the strategies that I want to implement. So whatever strategy or crazy thing that I have on my mind and I want to like make to the MC, or something that will force me to include like the LCPs, get on board in the process to get input on that, because you are the ones that are going to implement that strategy at the end. And the second thing that also forced me to have people in my team, and like that will be maybe the international perspective will be one of my strengths, but I need to have people in my team that come from the US. Of course, I will have probably international, but like most of them will be domestic people that are the most high qualified of the country that can give me that domestic perspective.
How will you make conferences more accessible to more members?
So one thing it's about, and I guess we all agree and we know that our conferences are not sustainable, financially sustainable currently, and there are some entities that are having a lot of losses because of that. And I think that that's a decision that we have to make between like within our conference as a business or within like all the like leadership development stuff. I'm not saying that it's like the other way around, but things that's not the leadership experience, but like the delegate experience. That's what I was trying to say. So when you think, for example, in this conference, we have coffee breaks. We have a lot of food that is like free, or like the hotel or the venue that we have. There are like so many other countries in the world that have venues that are cheaper, that have conference or the venue that have or sell all the other things that I told you, and they're still like growing. So that's a decision that we have to make. Like how maybe we cut some expenses that are actually like giving that enough, like that much value to the delegate to make them more cheaper, therefore more accessible for people to attend. The other thing is about like collaboration spaces, because I do believe that like sometimes you cannot expect that the MC is going to create every single touch point nationally. So why don't, for example, we create, and and that's a way to encourage this bottom-up culture. If we have, for example, West Coast, that they want to develop a startup projects in the region and they believe that that's what they need in that moment, why don't like one of the LCs take the lead, or we can say like the LCD team with the MC, you create the conference and then you create a strategy, and then these members doesn't have to wait until WNC or the SNC to be in touch with the like different members of different LCs. So maybe like how we create like collaboration strategies to make like regional conferences, like a cluster some LCs to create this touch point and this content. And that's it.
You speak up as well, all the LCPs.
In detail, with elements such as finance and training programs, what do you plan to do to facilitate a stronger success rate from expanding IGs in order to help them transform into high-functioning LCs in the future?
Okay, cool. So 3 things. One thing, I believe that like, I know that now we have an initial criteria to open new entities, and maybe if you don't know, we can talk about the later, like contract and like the preparation that the LCP need to have. But I do believe that this first person that we select to lead an expansion is not prepared enough in this per moment. I believe that we should spend a little bit more time in that preparation. So for example, why don't we take these people, take them to the national office, to like train them for maybe an entire weekend on how to be LCP, how to manage your finances, how to manage your exchange, things like that. And then you are prepared before you start. Because what happened is like, I just go and do it and then swim as you can. And then you get disbanded after 6 months. So what if I prepare before you go and then I teach you how to swim and then I launch you to your pool? One thing, that's one thing. And the second thing is about, I will have an LCD responsible. Maybe you saw in my application, that is like someone responsible, and one of the priorities is for strengthening the expansion entities that we already have and creating new ones. And I think we now have a new LCD structure, which is like the LCD team, which let's see how it works. I think it's gonna be like very valuable, but we need to have an additional person, not now because it's not a priority now, but in the future that will focus on opening and preparing these new entities in like this like learning process. And the final thing is about like building the capacity, not just depending on the MC. So for example, if you are in SOCO and then there is an entity that is starting, you don't have to wait for the MC to go there. Well, maybe we have UGA that is really good at marketing. And then why don't we use members that are really, really good in like that region, that are experts in a specific strategies to coach some other entities. And then go there instead of like the MC giving the entire capacity to the different entities that we have currently, plus the ones that we will open.
So in your platform, you mentioned 0 members on alert, along with like changing the mindset from okay, this is my market, what can I to like what? Sorry, to okay, this is my market, and what can I do to meet my goals? Do you think this like mindset change is the best and single way to reach 0 members on alert by the end of your term?
Absolutely not. I believe that the culture is a component of like what needs to be changed when you like are building or changing these minds and are building a culture in an LC, or like creating a strategy to like grow massively. That's one component. But there are some other things that I will consider. One thing is our education and coaching system need to evolve into like more proactive instead of more reactive. Because I think it's going to evolve with like the current MC strategy what we have, and this LCD team is going to that's the plan. It's going to be more proactive. But what currently is happening, we have our NSB structure, and we have like, because there are so many entities and we don't have the capacity to like maybe cover every single need of everyone. It's just like waiting the entities to reach out us, and then we provide the support. Instead of like going directly to what's happening today, that we can just like use and capitalize to like help you to leverage results in every single entity. Because maybe that's happening in like a few ones, but it's not enough because we don't have enough capacity for that, and that's why where the NSB plays an important role. And the other thing, it's about our cluster model. I also believe that should evolve, because what's happening now is like you are in a cluster model, you have these strategies, and then that's the thing that you should know. So because you are a small entity, then this is what you should do. What I do believe that should happen is like, okay, you are in this cluster, you are this, and this, and then if I want to jump to this cluster, what are the strategies that I have to do? It's not that you are small, like giving you a small strategy. It's like, okay, I'm in this phase of my cluster model. What do I have to do if I want to make 100 exchanges? And what are the big strategies that are the big projects? Instead of like, okay, you're a small LC, I give you, and then I keep giving you the biggest strategies to the big players. So I think that broad path that we don't have now. I mean, we have like in terms of like tactics and functionally speaking, and I do believe that we need like an outsourced, like external coaching model that, for example, big organizations are doing, that we can implement in AIESEC.
So you mentioned disruptive innovation in application, and also you delist a couple positions and add new positions in your team structure. So how can you make sure that your new team and also the LC levels can understand your theories and also can get your ideas and also implement the well?
Okay, so there are a couple of things that I see. One thing is communicate. I think there are like specific moments of truth, as I call them, that are important to evaluate if an MC structure is working or not. The first moment is in the moment I launch the application, and I define maybe after this conference, maybe I make a change, maybe after IPM I make another change. That will happen. But whatever change that happen in the moment that I select my team, I should communicate that with the LCPs. This is what the team is going to look like. This is what the JD that I'm envisioning. This is what you can expect of the MC team. Now, the next touch point is by the end of this current term, like this current MC. So by the moment I start my MC term, what if that change? What if like I can tell you like maybe by March we're doing 700 exchanges and then we massively grow in like 5,000. Maybe my strategy will totally change. And that's something that I cannot predict right now. So that's a different touch point. If I tell to the LCPs, okay, I initially launched this strategy, I have this group of people that can leverage this specific goal or these specific strategies that I envision right now. But then by the beginning of my term, this is how maybe it's gonna work. And like after planning, after transition, when we define our drivers and all the plan, maybe that can evolve because we see like as a collective that like, it's not my strategy, it's like a team thing. And we can give input that. And the other like important touch point is SMC. After being working for 2 months or like doing like all the strategies or trying to implement things, how I also can communicate with the LCPs, okay, give me feedback of what's happening in the past 2 months. Like do not wait until the end of the conference, do not wait until WNC to tell me that you didn't receive the support that was needed or like not in the proper time. So tell me that after 2 months, is this a structure making sense for you? Or I can tell you as an MCP, honestly, I don't feel that this specific structure is like giving the results that I was expecting. So what if we change this and this and this? Maybe this will give you the strategies that you need in this time.
How is your international background going to help AIESEC US if you become president?
So I think we have been discussing this before, like we know that we have this leadership development as they go through exchange. And I think that the fact that like the opportunity of delivering the amount of exchanges that I've delivered in my past experiences have given me like the knowledge or the different experiences that I can understand every single program in a different ways. I have experienced all the programs, GIP, GCDP, IFL, Exchange, TMP, TLP, every single program, and it's not about the number itself, but it means that I've seen more operational cycles. It means that I've led different type of teams. It means that I've worked with different country partners for different programs because I was ICX before and now I'm OGX. And then like the fact that I've seen all of that and I failed so many times and I have so many strategies that went wrong that made me understand like how, like what are the things that maybe doesn't like work for this reality and that maybe in this case or this scenario with these resources that I probably will make the same mistake. That's one thing. And the second thing is the understanding of the global strategy. Like I think that I have a really good understanding of like how AP work as a region, how Latin America work as a region, how AIESEC International work as a unit, and how can I take advantage of the way they work into like our MC and then downscale that to the LCPs. And I think that's because of the interaction of like different experiences and the people that I've met and the conference that I've attended and like the like living the experience itself of like having like different scenarios in like every single position that I've ever had.
Did you want to? Stretch out. Thank you guys so much. Are we doing the share thing now?
Yeah. So